everyone, and welcome back to Plainest Pages, or welcome if you're new here. Today we're finally talking about part 2 of Beloved. Last time we ended part 1 with Paul D leaving Sethi because he told Sethi that don't have 4 legs, you have 2. And we're continuing with chapter 19. 124 was loud. Stampede could hear it even from the road. Did you notice that every chapter starts with a different adjective to describe 124 as the book progresses? At first, Beloved was spiteful, now she's loud, and she claims more and more territory. But Stampede is trying to gather the courage to go talk to Sethi and right his wrongs. He's scolding himself because he realizes he did more harm than good by telling Paul D about what Sethi has done and by showing him the newspaper clipping. He sneaked behind Sethi's back and he feels sorry about both Sethi and Baby Suggs because I think he truly loved Baby Suggs. Deeper and more painful than his belated concern for Denver or Sethi, scorching his soul like a silver dollar in a fool's pocket was the memory of Baby Suggs, the mountain to his sky. He has memories about Baby Suggs and how after the events of the day when the 4 slave riders came to capture Sethi, she began to fade more and more away, and he calls Beloved murder the misery. He thinks about the suffering that this family has endured, and he thinks about how Baby Suggs died only like a few moments before the end of the Civil War, and how he had wanted to go out with her and to celebrate, but instead he was forced to grieve at her funeral. And he remembers that after Baby Suggs' death, the neighbors avoided Sethi, and at the funeral, Sethi was also cold and unfeeling. Sethi and her daughter were dry-eyed on that occasion. Sethi had no instructions except to take her to the clearing, which he tried to do, but was prevented by some rule the whites had invented about where the dead should rest. He's the only one who seemed to care that Baby Suggs was gone, and that's what presses on his heart. And so he tries to right the wrong after Paul D leaves because he realizes that Sethi just wanted a chance at a happy life. And here we also see that just because slavery ended doesn't mean that Black people were automatically suddenly given peace and the freedom to do what they wanted. Even in their death, they're haunted by the rules that the white people created, and so Baby Suggs cannot be buried where she should be buried. Stampede raised his fist to knock on the door he had never knocked on, because it was always open to or for him, and he could not do it. Dispensing with that formality was all the pay he expected from N in his debt. He had always been used to being invited, not as a guest, but as part of the family, and now he's a stranger, and that's why he can't bring himself to knock, and it takes him 6 days to try and come up. Meanwhile, on the other side of the door, Sethi is trying to listen to Baby Suggs and to lay it all down, sword and shield. 4 days after Paul D reminded her of how many feet she had, Sethi rummaged among the shoes of strangers to find the ice skates she was sure were there. So Beloved had found one pair, and she asked her what it was, and so Sethi decides to take her ice skating, and she gives Beloved the full pair, and she and Denver split one pair, so they all have one ice skate each, except for Beloved, who has the full pair, showing that they're extending all of their belongings to Beloved. They're extending their kindness and their hospitality to Beloved. She's getting the very best of what they have. She wants to show to the entirety of the Black community that she's fine, that I'm doing well, that here I am skating. And she also remarks that there seems to be a pattern, a month of happiness before it's all turned away. So 28 days she felt like a part of the Black community, and then the 4 slave hunters came. 28 days she had a happy life with Paul D before it fell apart. Was that the pattern? She wondered. Every 18 or 20 years her unlivable life would be interrupted by a short-lived glory. She's determined to go to ice skating because it's her way of proving to everyone that she's fine, and showing Paul D if he came by, he would discover that the woman Junk heaped for the 3rd time because she loved her children. That woman was sailing happily on a frozen creek. She remembers how the first thing that she did when she gained her freedom was to exchange her pride in exchange for Beloved's stone. She bartered her body, the only thing she had, for Beloved's stone. And the theme of hubris and excessive pride is a prominent one here because Morrison once again reminds us how everybody thinks that Sethi is prideful, but Sethi is only prideful because she cares for her daughter. She's not prideful for herself. The moment that she comes out, she gives away her pride for Beloved. She gives away her pride for her children. And traditionally, hubris has been a very prominent theme in Greek tragedy, and Morrison here twists it, and she shows to us what it was like for the Black community. So whereas for the whiteness of the Greek suffering, it was something like ego. For the Black community, pride was just loving your children and retaining that humanity when all the world was telling you that you shouldn't be considered human. And all that she did was for them, Ceci. And so she tries to let go of these heavy memories, and she goes skating with with her daughters, and they laugh and they glide and they laugh and they laugh. Nobody saw them fall, thinks Ceci repeatedly. Nobody knows that I'm at the lowest point in my life, and it's clear for the first time just how much Paul D's words offended her, just how much she hurt when she left, and she finds herself crying and then laughing, and then she stops laughing and only the tears remain. Wordlessly, her daughters comfort her, and after that, when they get back home from their lake trip, they snuggle together under a blanket and they drink hot milk. She's giving Beloved everything, and she's taking away everything Beloved from her. The hot milk they drink is symbolical of how it's not real milk. It's not Ceci's milk, and it could never replace it. It's a fake comfort. It's a dupe to turn away from their dysfunctionality as a whole. Beloved sings a song only Ceci and her children would have known, and that's when Beloved tells her that, I know. And Ceci understands. A hobnail casket of jewels found in the tree hollow should be fondled before it is opened. Its lock may have rusted or broken away from the clasp. Still, you should touch the nail heads and test its weight. No smashing with an axe head before it is decently exhumed from the grave that has hidden it all the time. No gasp at a miracle that is truly miraculous, because the magic lies in the fact that you knew it was there for you all along. The next day, she's still wondering at how lucky she is to get Beloved back, and almost as if in a daze, so again Beloved starts to slowly hypnotize her, she decides to come to work late for the first time in 16 years, and Stampede meanwhile reflects on how Baby Suggs died, how she finally had enough, how she was worn out. Her marrow was tired, and it was a testimony to the heart that fed it, that it took right years to meet finally the color she was hankering after. And he remembers his argument with Baby Suggs after he found out that she didn't want to preach anymore, and that she instead wanted to retire to the bedroom and just lie down. I'm saying they came in my yard, repeats Baby Suggs over and over again to any of Stampede's argument, and he gets angry and he leaves, and he regrets that still, that he let her do this instead of offering empathy and understanding and telling her to enjoy her retirement and to rest. And he details the horrible lynchings that took place. Lynchings at the time were basically what white people did to black people was they hung them, they tried to drive them out of their village, they tried to burn them because of the racism, because of the anger, because of the Civil War. And he says, but none of that had worn out his marrow. None of that. It was the ribbon. Tying his flatbed up on the bank of the Licking River, securing it the best he could, he caught sight of something red on its bottom. He tugged, and what came loose in his hand was a red ribbon knotted around a curl of wet woolly hair clinging still to its bit of scalp. That's what broke him down. That's what triggered his fatigue, and he feels now that he's going to die. Ceci has convinced herself, meanwhile, that it's for the best that Paul D has left. Paul D convinced me there was a world out there, and that he could live in it. Should have known better. Did know better. Whatever is going on outside my door ain't for me. The world is in this room. This here's all there is, and all there needs to be. She decides that she doesn't need everything else. Her life is perfect the way it is. She has her daughters, and now she wishes that Howard and Burglar would come back, and suddenly harmony would appear. And she decides that she doesn't need this outside world, and any illusion of the inner harmony that she had previously disappears, because Paul D broke her down, and the realization that Beloved is back, that she gets another chance at life, has broke her down. She doesn't see the point in life anymore. Harmony is another classical theme, and now we see it removed in the face of terrible history. Stampede tries to get Ella. Do you remember Ella? She's the one who helped Sethi when Sethi first came with a child on her back, and he tries to get Ella to take Paul D in, and in the process we see how the friendship with Sethi has collapsed. Ella doesn't want anything to do with the family, and that's why she hadn't offered to take Paul D in. She tells Stamp not to get riled up because he's furious at her, and he replies that, I'm going to stay riled till somebody gets some sense, and the least way act like a Christian. Back to Sethi and the memories of Sixo, who stole food like the rest of them. So schoolteacher had interrogated him as to whether he stole food, and Sixo had said, no, I didn't steal food, and he said, are you lying to me? And he said, no, I stole food because I'm hungry, and I didn't really steal food, I just repurposed the job. By feeding myself, I am feeding your value. And it was clever, but schoolteacher beat him anyway to show him that definitions belong to the definers, not the defined. And she remembers how schoolteacher had asked his pupils to make a list about Sethi with animal characteristics on one side and human characteristics and compare the two. And Sethi didn't understand the word characteristics, and she had asked the dying Miss Gardner what the word meant. And Miss Gardner had a throat tumor, and her throat was really swollen, and she was getting progressively weaker. And she remembered how trusting she was and how things had quickly changed and how humiliated she felt when she realized that school teacher thought of her as an animal, and he was even getting his pupils' children to compare. This is how primary socialization was taking place. This is how children were taught from an early age that slaves were animals. And she realized that Howard and Burglar would soon be old enough to sell, and that's when she addresses all her memories to Beloved. But I got you out, baby, and the boys too. She tries to reassure herself that it was all worth it because she got her children out. I won't never let her go. I'll explain to her, even though I don't have to, why I did it. How if I hadn't killed her, she would have died, and that's something I could never bear to happen to her. When I explain it, she'll understand because she understands everything already. I'll tend to her as no mother ever tended a child, a daughter. Nobody will ever get my milk, no more except my own children. I never had to give it to nobody else, and the one time I did was took from me. They held me down and took it. Ceci reminisces on her choices and thinks about how she can finally say what she wanted to say. She thinks about the paradox that she didn't want Beloved to die and so she had to kill her. And she remembers how Nan used to nurse her with any milk that she had left over after she fed the white babies, and how she tried to identify her mother's body but Nan dragged her away. She's being rebellious and risking her only job with Sawyer because now she no longer feels like she needs it. Now I know why Baby Sugg splendid color her last years. She never had time to see, let alone enjoy it before. Took her a long time to finish it with blue, then yellow, then green. She was well into pink when she died. I don't believe she wanted to get to red, and I understand why because me and Beloved did ourselves with it. She understands why Baby Suggs wanted to rest in peace and to think about colors because all her life she was told about black and white, how black is bad and how white is good, and all her life she was thinking about red, how red is the color of blood, and how her daughter-in-law has killed her grandchild, and she just wanted to think of colors that made her happy. And Sethy looks for the future, and she hopes for a reunion for the rest of the family, and she also thinks about spring and how for the first time she can enjoy spring and how she can show Beloved the joy of life. Beloved, Beloved, because you mine and I have to show you these things and teach you what a mother should. Funny how you lose sight of some things and memory others. And then she thinks back to Miss Gardner. Still can't figure why she thought she needed school teacher though. I wonder if she lasted like I did. Last time I saw her she couldn't do nothing but cry, and I couldn't do a thing for her but wipe her face when I told her what they'd done to me. Miss Gardner's horrible throat likely killed her, but Cecily remarks that she never knows, and a part of her understands that she shouldn't care about Miss Gardner, but still she does, wondering if she's alive, because Miss Gardner didn't mean to be horrible. It was school teacher, and of course she was a slave owner. But she really tried to do their best, even though it ultimately damaged them. She drags her thoughts back to all the things that she wants to say Beloved. She doesn't want to think about Miss Gardner in the past, and she feels stupid instead that she didn't know straight away that Beloved was her daughter. We also find out why Beloved was so thirsty when she emerged out of the river. I would have known who you were right away because the cup after cup of water you drank proved and connected to the fact that you dribbled clear spit on my face the day I got to 124. I would have known right off, but Balti distracted me. She also thinks about how close she came to being a Saturday girl, another name for a prostitute, and how she would have been forced to sell herself out had the Bodwins not gave her a job that allowed her to feed her family. And it's that job that she's risking now, and this is her reasoning. I couldn't lay down with you then, no matter how much I wanted to. I couldn't lay down nowhere in peace back then. Now I can. I can sleep like the drowned, have mercy. She come back to me, my daughter, and she's mine. Now that she found Beloved, she wants to leave life and to live with her ideal family, pretend like none of this ever happened. Chapter 21 is Denver's reflections, written from first person. Like Sethi's chapter 20, this is an emotional chapter where she reflects on her brother's fear and her own relationship with Beloved. I swallowed her blood right along with my mother's milk. The first thing I heard after not hearing anything was the sound of her crawling up the stairs. She writes that as much as she loves her mother, I'm scared of her. She also writes that her brothers told her to defend herself from Sethi before they went to war. I guess they'd rather be around killing men than killing women. She's afraid for Beloved and she vows to protect her. She's focused on it. She's also afraid that somehow Sethi will go crazy again and try to kill all of them. We see now for the first time what it's like to live in Denver's head. She's terrified, and that's why, not since Miss Lady Jones's house, have I left 124 by myself. That's why Denver is living this terrible, lonely life, because she's terrified of everything and she's terrified of loving something. I have to tell her. I have to protect her. She thinks about Beloved, and she loves her more than her own mother. She cut off my head every night. Bugler and Howard told me she would, and she did. This is about Sethi, so she did this to Denver. Sethi sleepwalks and she braids her hair, and Denver knows that if she falls asleep while Sethi is braiding her hair, that Sethi will kill her, so she has to stay awake and she has to fight sleep, and the only room Sethi doesn't get to her is Baby Suggs' room. Baby Suggs is protecting her even in death. And she thinks back to Hallie and how she wishes her father would come back because she remembers what Baby Suggs said. He was too good for the world. She's so proud of how her dad could read and write, and maybe that was part of the reason why she was excelling in school so much. We see that she's actually very close to baby Suggs, and she had a very good relationship with her. We should all be together. Me, him, and beloved. Ma'am could stay or go off with Poldy if she wanted to, unless Daddy wanted her himself, but I don't think he would now, since she let Poldy in her bed. Grandma Baby said people look down on her for that. Slaves not supposed to have pleasurable feelings on their own. Their bodies not supposed to be like that. But they have to have as many children as they can to please whoever owned them. Still, they were not supposed to have pleasure deep down. She said for me to not listen to all that I should always listen to my body and love it. That's the main message that Baby Suggs had passed on to Denver, and she also told Denver that the ghost would never hurt her, but she should watch out because it needed love. And I do love her. I do. She played with me and always came to be with me whenever I needed her. She's mine, beloved. She's mine. Chapter 22 starts with the phrase, I am beloved and she's mine. But this is not about Denver. This is about Sethi. Everything is about Sethi for beloved, and she reflects on how she viewed Sethi from above and how she wanted to help, but the clouds are in the way. This chapter is very hard to read because it's beloved's infant self and the adult body that is speaking. For the child, death is a dead man on my face and daylight coming through the cracks. Her speech is a stream of consciousness monologue without any stops or pauses. She's denied logic and expression in this outburst of emotion, but her overall meaning is clear though. I cannot lose her again. My dead man was in the way. This is all an infant's fear about losing her newfound mother again. Listen. She's going to her sharp earrings are gone, and then men without skin are making loud noises. They push my old man through. They do not push the woman with my face through. She goes in. They do not push her. She goes in. The little hill is gone. She was going to smile at me. She was going to a hot thing. This is a very emotional chapter. For beloved, that wills her back to being is a hot thing. It's Sethi's spirit and determination. Beloved loses herself, so strong is her feeling that she's one with Sethi. I see the dark face that is going to smile at me. It is my dark face that is going to smile at me. The iron circle is around her neck. She does not have sharp earrings in her ears or a round basket. She goes in the water with my face. She's still scared though. She waits to feel wanted. There is no one to want me, to say my name. I wait on the bridge because she is under it. There is night and there is day. And then finally her emergence as she repeats, I am not dead, in childlike wonder. It's like a murky memory, and we talked before about how beloved is more than just one child. Beloved represents the experiences of all the slaves transported to America from Africa and from the colonies, and she represents the voices of 1,000 slaves, and so she's one of the dead. And all the experiences are not just her. We can join a hot thing, so all the ghosts of the past come back because of one woman's determination. Here's the full passage. I come out of blue water after the bottoms of my feet swim away from me. I come up. I need to find a place to be. The air is heavy. I am not dead. I am not. There's a house. There is what she whispered to me. I am where she told me I am not dead. I sit. The sun closes my eyes. When I open them, I see the face I lost. Sethi's is the face that left me. Sethi sees me, see her, and I see the smile. Her smiling face is the place for me. It is the face I lost. She's my face, smiling at me, doing it at last. A hot thing now. We can join a hot thing. I think this very much represents the memories of the Black community. The spirit lives on, and just one Sethi is enough to make sure that all of these thousands of people don't go forgotten. Chapter 23 is also a continuation of Beloved's lyrical exploration of her relationship to her mother. Likewise, it also starts with, I am beloved and she's mine. Sethi's the one that picked flowers. As if there could be any doubt at all that this is Sethi. And this chapter 23, is much more calm compared to chapter 22. It's like Beloved has let it all out and now she's matured. She was about to smile at me when the men without skin came and took us up into the sunlight with the dead and shoved them into the sea. This chapter as a whole is more measured, it's more calm, it has more punctuation. It's more clear as Beloved realizes what she wants to express and as she gathers strength from her story. The men without skin are obviously the 4 men who tried to capture them, and going into the sea is a metaphor for crossing the boundary between what is accepted and what Sethi thought would be the correct situation. And she wanted to join her beloved nose because she wanted to die, to cross that border between life and death. The sea is a symbol of an edge, a liminality. It's not only the moral boundaries, but it's the physical boundaries of an ocean too. Now I have found her in this house. She smiles at me, and it is my own face smiling. I will not lose her again. She's mine. Then there's a conversation between Beloved Sethi, and Beloved admits to coming back from the other side because of Sethi, and she says that she remembered her because they share the same face. Sethi tells her that the men will never ever come back and that they took the earrings away. Beloved tells her that if they put an iron circle around your neck, I will bite it away. This conversation is in Beloved's mind because she had a similar conversation with Denver where she says that I am loving her too much and that she is the laugh, I am the laughter, reminding us once again that to her Sethi is a hot thing, a thing that brought her back, spirit, determination, passion. Then the voices of Sethi and Denver join into one song. You are my sister, you are my daughter, you are mine, you are mine, you are mine, over and over. I drank your blood, I drank your milk. This chapter ends with the repetition, you are mine, you are mine, you are mine. The trio are joined by milk, smiles, and blood. It's like a magic charm uttered 3 times, like a voodoo spell. And again, let's remember the significance of the number 3 for Christianity. Likewise, this novel also has 3 parts, 3 women, Denver, Sethi, and Beloved. They're all some version of Christianity, and their relationship with God is complicated. And the significance of the number 3, repeated over and over again, reminds us of just how complicated it is and how these symbols keep cropping up again and again. 124 was spiteful, 124 was loud, 124 was quiet. Chapter 24. Paul D sits in the Church of the Holy Redeemer, which is a tiny church where he has been staying, and he gets additional warmth from a bottle of liquor jammed in his coat pocket. Warmth and red eye. He held his wrist between his knees, not to keep his hands still, but because he had nothing else to hold on to. His tobacco tin, blown open, spilled contents that floated freely and made him their play and prey. This is why Paul D can't pull himself together and move on like he did before, because when he slept with Beloved, she opened something in him. She unlocked that rusted tobacco tin, and he had shouted red heart, as he realized that he has a life, that he has emotions, and he can't just move on. And he thinks instead of how they didn't believe Sixo's tales about slavery elsewhere because they only knew Mr. Garner. Everything rested on Garner being alive. Without his life, each of theirs fell to pieces. Now, ain't that slavery, or what is it? That's what slavery is. Morrison defines it as such, or Paul D defines it as such, rather. Slavery is knowing that without the life of a white man, your life falls apart too. And he thinks back to their escape plan and how they wanted to go, and Sixo was going to meet his lover, the 30-mile woman, and Halliot and his entire family would run because there would be a black female who'd give them a signal. But then all he remembers is coming back because he heard gunshots and he sees Hallie with the butter, and no one is supposed to be where they're supposed to be, and it all goes wrong. Sixo pushes his woman out of the way, and he and Paul D are captured and they're tied, and Sixo won't stop singing, and it's too much for the school teacher. It's too much for his pride to have the slave be happy, to not bow down and to subdue himself to his white master. And he decides that it undermines his authority, and he tells him to burn him alive, but Sixto starts singing 7-0, 7-0, 7-0. He reminds them of his value until they're forced to shoot him, but he's happy because his lover escaped and she was pregnant with his child. Wanting to live out his life with a whole woman was new, and losing the feeling of it made him want to cry and think deep thoughts that struck nothing solid. When he was drifting, thinking only about the next meal and night's sleep, when everything was packed tight in his chest, he had no sense of failure, of things not working out. He thinks with bitterness about Beloved kicking him out, and with regret about how he should have joined Sixo in song, a celebration of the new life he had created. He also pieces together that Sethi was assaulted, and that's what traumatized Hallie. He also feels ashamed in front of Sethi in his collar because he felt emasculated and he couldn't run, whereas here was this woman who was heavily pregnant, who was determined to run anything for her children. It's ironic that he sits on the porch of the Redeemer Church, as he doesn't know what he can do to redeem himself, or in Sethi's eyes, and so he tries to drink the liquor to warm himself because the church offers no comfort. Morrison subtly telling us that in these specific moments, God is nowhere to be seen, and yet they still manage to be Christian, and yet they still manage to have faith. In chapter 25, Stampede, especially Faithful, finds Paul D at the church and apologizes that no one has offered him a place to stay. Paul D tells him to not worry, as Reverend had actually done so, he just didn't accept it because he wanted to be alone. When Stamp asks him of his plan, he drinks and says he has one. Any planning in a bottle was short, thought Stamp, but he knew from personal experience the pointlessness of telling a drinking man not to. Stampede tries to fix the situation that he created by telling Paul D of his own grief and by telling him why he changed his name to Stampede. So his actual name was Joshua, and he had a wife called Vashti, and she had sexual relationships with their white owner, and she would do so repeatedly. And one day he even told the white wife of the slave owner, risking both of their lives, but she knew, and this is what broke him. And when they finally decided to escape, he said that he wanted to break Vashti's neck because he felt so slighted that she pursued these relationships with a white man. And they made plans to escape together, but the wife didn't make it, and he still feels grief. Not because she died, but because he had those thoughts. He forgot how to be human. He wanted to kill his he wanted to kill his wife. And that's when he changed his name from Joshua to Stampede. And then Paul D offers his condolences and they sit in silence, but suddenly Stampede bursts out, admitting that he saw Sethi do the deed. She ain't crazy. She loved these children. She was trying to out-hunt the hunter. And in response, Poti says, "Stamp, let me off. I knew her when she was a girl. She scares me, and I knew her when she was a girl." Their conversation just shows how different the coping mechanisms are for everyone. Paulty can't forgive Sethi for murder of beloved, and Stampede can't forgive his wife for sleeping with a white slave owner. And they both escaped slavery fleeing north, but Stampede changed his name, whereas Paulty didn't. He's still, in a way, the last of the Sweet Home men. He carries that legacy with him, and Stampede tells him that they must suffer through and be stoic, and Paulty asks how much someone can take. And Stamp says all that he can, and Paulty repeats why, over and over again. And the section ends here. With that, we conclude part 2, and watch out for my last installment in this series, a video on part 3 of Beloved, the final part of Beloved. Thank you so much for making it all the way here, and I'll see you soon.